Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Marguerite, and I would like to talk today about performance, both in the professional space as well as the personal space, and how we can navigate and adjust our standards with grace. Now, raise your hand if you are a high potential person. You got a lot of goals, you got a lot of ambition. I figure if you're in this room, you're probably one of those people. That's what draws us to these kinds of programs, right? And that's part of what makes us bright and excitable for life. But it also means that we get these giant to-do lists, right? We've got a lot of identities that we're trying to maintain. I wrote this a couple weeks ago and thought I could get through all of this in one weekend, right? Because in addition to being great at my job, I also want to be a great friend and a great partner. And I have other identities that really matter to me too. And how can I meet all of them? Well, one identity that's important to me is I always wanted to be a performer. And when I was a kid, my parents put me in a ballet class, but they quickly took me out of it because they said you weren't very good at choreography. You just kept laughing and giggling with your friends and you just couldn't really focus. And so even though I went to a performing arts middle and high school for the rest of my adolescence, I was never a dancer. I was a singer and an actress, but I couldn't get into any of the musicals. And so I decided, well, I guess I'm just not a dancer, even though I love to dance. And that was a bit disappointing. But so how do we deal with this when we've got these big expectations, right? We think that we have to be the best. In order to be a runner, we have to run 5 miles a day. We can't just run occasionally. When we have these big identities that we wish to achieve, it can actually set us up for a lot of crushing failure or disappointment in ourselves. And this is present in work as well, right? Many of us have a lot of different goals. I know when I started my job, I was given one spreadsheet and I turned it into a 40-page report with 30 KPIs, much like my to-do list. And when we started to look at this, I realized that I didn't have priorities right. So how can I start to think about what is both urgent and important? And this is essential if you're a performer as well. It's not about hitting every single move, but knowing what are the most important themes that you want to get across to your audience, whether that's your boss or, an actual audience. Now, even if you have a great routine, disaster might happen. Change happens. We work in utility space, right? There's new regulations that might come about. And I bet that many of us have experienced new managers and bosses who have changed the vision of what we're working on. So all of this means that we're forced into this space to be adaptable. So I do a lot of public speaking and it's something I love to do. And what I love about performance is that every time it's going to be different. I'm going to forget some of the jokes that I planned today and I'm going to forget some of the lines and I might even trip going on stage. It's happened. And so what happens when you're on stage or you're off and you realize that you missed something? You missed something essential. It can immediately feel like you are just a total failure. That whole day is no good because I didn't reach my potential. And that can really be damaging to our egos as well as our performance overall. So how can we redefine and reset what success looks like? How can we reset the bar? Well, first off, to improve, we have to adapt. We have to be willing to change the goal and think about what we're trying to achieve. And we also have to be good at improv, which means we have to expect and know that we're able to adapt in the moment and adjust and even laugh it off if you make some mistakes. But so what is good enough? What does success actually feel like? Whether you're in a performance or you're talking in a conversation, it's really up for you to decide. And in order to do that, we have to have regular reflection and reanalysis. This is an opportunity for us to think about our values. So what exactly are my priorities? Am I focused on family right now? Do I need to focus on myself? Or do I need to really focus in on this project? That can help us with regular reflection in both the personal and professional world, as well as a performance. What are the essential things to get done? Sometimes, though, it can feel like we're lowering the bar, which means we're lowering our standards and maybe not even achieving all that we thought we could. And that can be hard to feel, but it's actually an act of compassion to adjust some of what your expectations are for yourself and for how you're showing up in life. Now, accountability is key. All of the managers in the room here, we're not advocating that we don't want to meet our ROI, we don't want to meet our budget or timelines. It's essential that we work with mentors, bosses, friends who can help us evaluate what our top priorities are so that we make sure that those top 3 things don't get compromised. As we make some of these connections and start to actually collaborate, we start to create new habits that can create our identities. That's from Atomic Habits, by the way. And this helps us to really start to choreograph something that looks more authentic for us. always iterating and automating some of what we do. And we're going to inherently get distracted, right? There's a billion things that we could pay attention to in a given day. But if you start to do this exercise of compassionate reevaluation, you can examine what is most important to you. And that's how you can continue to come back to those identities. So, I'm not a professional dancer. I will never make it to New York, but I do take some dance classes. I'm not the best in the room, but I have a lot of fun, and I like to improv through and still achieve that part of me that feels really important, even though I'm not the best, and I will never be, and that's okay. So as you're dancing through life, don't be afraid to reset the way that you're approaching some of your goals. It's actually an act of self-compassion, and know what is most important to you, and don't be afraid to improv a little bit because you set the bar. Thank you.